The very latest in news, traffic,
weather and sports.
Live on TV and across all our social media platforms. Hashtag UBCJMU.
Hope you'll be setting your alarms, cause we are looking forward to seeing you then.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It's a brand new day and we thank God for the gift of life, most importantly, and we thank Him for actually granting us another 24 hours to redeem ourselves with the decisions that we make. The year is fast passing on and it's heading towards the 31st of December 2021. I'm not sure if you're heading in the same direction. If you're heading in the same direction, good for you. If you're not heading in the same direction, you have a lot to think about and redecide. But for us here on Good Morning Uganda, from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, we are committed to inspiring you, our dear Uganda. So, good morning to Uganda and welcome to UBC this morning. Thank you so much for turning off your alarm and turning on your screen, your phone, your YouTube. From the diaspora community, thank you so much for always waking up with us. And as we start off, my name is Priscilla Nalwoga alongside Robert Kirabo. Good morning to you, Robert.
A lovely morning to you, Priscilla, and of course our darling viewers. Thank you so much for choosing to wake up with us. Now, when Priscilla talks about the year ending 31st of December not being very far, it just reminds me of people who set goals. As the year comes to an end, we have New Year's resolutions. Yes, how far have you gone? Were they so hard to be attainable? If so, how are you handling such a time when you know you're running against time and there are so many things that you plan to do? Otherwise, a lovely morning to you, and like she said, yes, it is a new day and every day comes with its own opportunities. The only thing you need to have is a positive mindset, then you're ready to go.
Well, it's a full fantastic four with us here. We do have Molin Kenyana alongside Felix Nkunda. Good morning to you, friends.
Well, I think the honor should be with the lady, as you always say, ladies first. Though it has been changed most recent, I'll tell you how. Good morning, Molin.
Yes, a very good morning to you.
How are you?
I am doing well.
You look
I'm doing well. Oh, thank you very much.
And that's a message from me.
I like that
Robert.
Emphasis.
Oh, stunning.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we missed you yesterday. I hope you're well.
Yeah, I am well. I'm doing much better today. Yeah, so I missed you guys as well.
Well, Priscilla, how are you, my dear?
I'm very fantastic, Felix Nkunda. How are you?
I'm awesome.
Okay.
And I love your blazer.
Merci beaucoup.
Robert, good morning.
Are you sure I didn't get lost with the French?
No, merci beaucoup.
You know, I can give you lessons
Really?
in French, yeah.
Yeah, Molin says that's normally, but when we get off
Oh, no.
But it's good to have you guys this morning. It's another beautiful day, quite cold. since last Premedi, it was very, very cold up till today. I don't know how the weather is treating you.
Oh, trust you me, for the single people, the weather is really not user-friendly.
Say that again. Say that again,
For the single people, the weather is surely not user-friendly. You freeze from the feet all the way to the hair.
And then from the hair back to the feet.
And you back to the feet. You boil water, you almost want to boil yourself.
No, it's simple. Take a hot cup of tea, because even some
But
that
you
would be, assumptions. Sometimes when I was young, there are some assumptions I had. After growing, I came to understand that yes, there could be even married who singles are more warmer than each other.
Think about that. Like now, Honorable Chiaga Hillary. Oh yeah, Honorable Chiaga Hillary. One of his very first songs, if any of you remembers it.
You've gotten it, Felix. Mazongoto, double bed.
That song was called Double Bed Mazongoto. Now, in that song, he sings and talks about the big beds and how they have ruined marriages. That all you need to do is to roll over to the other corner. Then they look for you. Your partner looks for you in the bed like they're looking for a need.
In this kind of weather, I know one prayer that single people are praying out.
Hey.
All couples, people coupling up, may you fall off the bed.
At what time do you say this prayer when you're sleeping?
At that point when you're feeling cold and you imagine there are people there who are just two and, cuddling, you're like, oh, may they fall off the bed.
Also sometimes it depends on how psychologically you're prepared and the security in the area. Yesterday, the people of Kasoko, so that is in Chira Division, had a tough night where a group of young boys, commonly known as Chifesi, made a roundup. We call it like an operation, and by the end of the night, 15 people were stabbed. Some are in Mulago Hospital, some are in clinics around there. So the level of insecurity in Chisoko, so I think it's time now that police better empowers. We thought these young boys had gone for good. The Chifesi, the Ipanda, Felix knows because there are many in Lubaga, most of the times there. But what they did, it was total anarchy to an entire village there.
Okay, all right. How is that related to weather though?
So if the situation does not permit for some people, if you're not comfortable enough, if there's insecurity, neighbor, this has happened. Neighbor, this has happened. We are taking Sansot Hospital. Then you see, security guarantees all these things we are talking about. You cannot sleep because of the cold weather when they are calling you, chairman, come and take this one, come and take the other one to hospital.
Okay, all right. It reminds me of that question they used to ask you, what is science? So maybe Molen Kenyana can answer this question. What is science? Then the answer would be, science is the art of, I'm thinking.
Sure.
But Molen has a better answer.
Maybe art. Good. There are some art subjects that would start is the science. So something is like art, but then you're like, it is the science. So I think science is everywhere. Like everything around us is scientific. Have you ever stopped to imagine something like that? There is science in everything, even in the air we breathe, even in how we see, like everything, even in how we talk, it's actually science.
I just remember that science is the study of living things and non-living things. And you would get
the salaries of science teachers. Now you know why.
Because of the confusion they bring on board.
Because of the algebra, what and x cube p, what, those kind of things.
Okay, all right. Well, we continue on after that light-hearted conversation, starting off with the stories that have made headlines locally, internationally, as well as far as the weather, nature is concerned, and an update on the COP26.
And we will start off with the transfer of registration of vehicles from URA, that is Uganda Revenue Authority, to Ministry of Works and Transport, where the Ministry of Works and Transport has taken over the registration and licensing of vehicles from the Uganda Revenue Authority. At the mandate handover, the Minister of Transport, General Katumba Wamala, emphasized as the matter of registering vehicles, saying it is so much connected to the national security, citing the President's directive to reverse after a period of 30 years. Amidst the ongoing debate on the installation of the digital tracking devices in all vehicles on the Ugandan roads, the President directed the mandate of registering vehicles to be returned to the Mother Ministry of Transport and Works. The Minister is tasked to roll out all vehicles on Uganda roads and ensure they create an updated digital system. General Katumba elaborated on the objective of the takeover, including security vigilance, among others. The operations of registering vehicles will remain in the premises of URA, being conducted by the ministry officials. URA will remain with the responsibility of motor vehicle customs clearance and first-time registration. URA has seconded 20 of its staff to support the Ministry of Works in this new operation by providing technical requirements.
Following a resurgence of new COVID-19 infections, the National Task Force assigned the Ministry of ICT to coordinate and disseminate Government of Uganda's response plans, sensitize the public and reverse the spread of COVID-19. Yesterday, the Minister for ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, flanked by his junior minister in charge of National Guidance, Godfrey Kabyanga, and the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Amina Zawede, appeared before the Budget Committee, chaired by Patrick Isianji Opolot, to explain how the 8.1 billion shillings was spent. Media buying of 5.42 billion, buying space, UBC 2 billion, management fees of 400 million shillings, and then design and printing materials including consultancy 280 million shillings, communication task force 90 million shillings. The minister, however, noted that some of the funds have not been transferred, considering that the campaign stretched to October 2021 and will be received by the end of November this very year.
Still on health issues now regarding family planning, the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with health partners, have launched the Uganda Family Planning 2030 commitments. These commitments are launched after every 5 years to reposition and push the family planning agenda, including the information and provision of family planning commodities. According to the Demographic Health Survey of 2016, the unmet need for family planning is 28%, implying that some women who would wish to delay childbearing have no access to modern contraceptives. The Ministry of Health has launched the Uganda Family Planning and assured Ugandans that these will be available. However, as government struggles to push the family planning agenda forward, unresolved issues of sexuality, education, more so for school-going youth, remain not answered. The unprecedented number of school-going girls that have gotten pregnant at a tender age during COVID-19 lockdown is yet another concern. Government is trying to increase access to family planning because it is looked at as the key to development issues now that the country is aspiring to achieve the middle income status by 2040.
And finally, for our local stories, Uganda Railways Corporation is under spotlight again over alleged illegal and dubious sale of the corporation's land. The Parliamentary Committee on Commissions, Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises established that the corporation land sold over the years have no substantial documents and most of the land was sold to one individual. The legislators say the move was a calculated one involving convenience of top staff of Uganda Railways Corporation. Appearing before the Parliamentary Committee of COSASE, the officials from Uganda Railways Corporation remained speechless when members of parliament put questions before them pertaining their fraudulent parceling out of the corporation's prime land. They rotated around the illegal sale of land and sanctioning encroachments on the corporation's land in different locations. The available documents do show over 100 pieces of land across the country were sold over the years with no substantive documents, and most of the land was sold to one individual. The MPs also were concerned on whether the encroachment on the corporation's land along the rails occurred without the awareness of Uganda Railway Corporation staff. The MPs also halted the process of recruiting new staffs at URC after identifying irregularities in the recruitment process.
And we will be picking it up from our first story, where we see no misconduct in deadly US drone attack in Kabul, where Pentagon came out to make a review and stated that the United States drone attack that killed 10 civilians, including 7 children, in Afghan capital Kabul in August did not violate the laws of war. An internal Pentagon review has included. Now, speaking for the reporters at Pentagon on Wednesday, Air Force Lieutenant General Sami said execution error, including confirmation bias and communication breakdown, contributed to the deadly attack. Now, but also said that who acts on Inspector Generals of the U.S. Air Force said it was not a violation of the law of war. It was an honest mistake, said, but it is not criminal conduct, random conduct, or neither negligence. The drone strike on August 29th came amid the U.S. chaotic military withdrawal from Kabul, and said also stressed it took places as American forces were contending with the threats from Islamic State in that particular region. Now, in other news, nuclear talks with world powers also resume, that is with Iran. Now, Iran has said it will resume multilateral talks on November 29th in Australia capital Vienna, aimed at reviving the country's nuclear deal with the world powers. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Ali Bagheri Kani, who came before the Tehran's chief negotiator amid September, said Wednesday the date was set in phone call with the European Union mediators Enrique Mora. We agreed to start the negotiations amid the removal on unlawful inhuman sanctions on 29th November in Vienna, Bagheri said on Twitter, referring to the measures the United States had imposed on Iran. Now, lastly, about about our stories, international stories, we'll be looking at Facebook comes out to delete Ethiopia's Prime Minister's post that urged citizens to bury rebels. Now, Facebook has removed a post from Ethiopia's Prime Minister for violating its policies against inciting violence. On Sunday, Abiy Ahmed called on citizens to take up arms to block the advance of the rebels Tigray People's Liberation Front. Now, the TPLF has fought a year-long campaign against government forces, capturing key towns in recent days. Facebook has been criticized for failing to do more to stop its platforms from being used to incite violence. In the post, Mr. Abiy said that the rebels advance pushing the country to its demise. He urged citizens to organize and march through legal manners with every weapon and power to prevent the reverse and bury the terrorists of the TPLF.
The international scene, we talk COP26, where 190 nations and organizations pledged to quit coal. Now, major coal users, including Poland, Vietnam, and Chile, are committing to shift away from the fossil fuels in pledges made at the COP26 climate summit, the UK government says. Now, coal is the single biggest contributor to climate change. The UK government said that 190 nations and organizations have vowed to quit coal. However, some of the world's biggest coal-dependent countries, including Australia, India, China, and the US, did not sign on the pledge. Now, signatories to this agreement have committed to ending all investment in new coal power generations domestically and internationally. They have also agreed to phase out coal power in the 2030s for major economies and 2040s for poorer nations, the UK said. The end of coal is in sight, the UK Business and Energy Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng said. Now, the world is moving in the right direction, standing ready to seal coal's fate and embrace the environment and economic benefits of building a future that is powered by clean energy.
So much, Nyonyintono, for that update, as well as Felix Nkunda, Robert Kirabo. Speaking of which, we do have something to remind you about this morning, very important to your health.
And it is Mr. Hallelujah here with Hallelujah products. That is Hallelujah turmeric drink and Hallelujah ginger tea drink. Drinks you must ensure that are part of your diet. When you wake up, in your fridge, if you're driving, you have such, because they will boost your immune system, and that is what we need at a time when the world is full of a number of diseases. Strengthening your white blood cells to be able to fight diseases is your #1 priority. So get yourself hallelujah, turmeric while you are ginger tea drink from any store next to you.
All right, some news that is coming through regarding coronavirus and the global fight against it. Of course, the big question has been, yes, we're vaccinating the senior people of this country and the globe, the 18 plus. How about those that are minors in this case of COVID-19? The 0 to 17 years of age, what is the solution for them? Well, breaking news coming through from the US, they have approved a vaccine that can now be used on those between the ages of 5 years and 12 years, and it's kicking off as early as this very week as it continues in the USA, which I think is positive news, because if you look at countries like the USA, so far their death toll stands at 750,000 deaths that have so far occurred because of COVID-19. And now, you know, the younger generation also must be protected against the coronavirus. I want to find out from my colleagues what they think of this new development in the fight against COVID-19. Felix Nkunda, what do you think?
Well, of course, looking at what's happening in the world, I think this is something we have needed for quite a long time. We've been talking about protection of people of age, but probably the kids have been able to fight this with their immunity. But probably now this will help have more certainty in how safe they are, and probably also works directly into reopening of institutions of learning. It gives quite a number of aspects of confidence.
Okay, all right. Molen Kenyana, what would you have to say about this?
Well, I think this is a very good development, looking at the fact that most economies, most countries are opening up schools even for the children within that age group. So I think that it's about time, and this is good news. And we're hoping that that is going to be extended to other countries, because we also need these children to go back to school knowing that they are vaccinated and they are safe. There is the way vaccination gives you that kind of confidence in knowing that you're able to fight the virus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robert Kirabo, obviously we do have a story yesterday that we did that was indicating that we do have Dr. Musenero and the team starting trials early next year for vaccines that we can actually manufacture here locally to be able to deal with the backlog that we have in the presence of various vaccinations in the country regarding COVID-19. And with this news, does this give us hope that even locally we can be able to develop and maybe come up with something that can cover this target audience also?
Definitely, it gives us hope, but I think for me, over time, I'll take an example of Russia. Russia is one of the countries that manufactures vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines, but you'll find that it's registering currently a high death rate because we're not taking these vaccines. I think much as we are making breakthroughs in science, we must also understand how best do we explain, do we sensitize and avail people with information. If the adults have been finding it hard to take these vaccines, then what about the juniors? A parent is not confident taking that jab, then how confident will he or she be giving out their young one to go for this vaccine? Mm-hmm. The world has to invest so much in explaining, in giving relevant information regarding these vaccines. I think globally we are having that challenge.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, across Europe, they are registering yet spiking numbers of COVID-19 infections. However, the death toll is low. The reason being that they managed to ensure that there's full maximum vaccination of their population. And so they don't worry, even hospitals are not suffering from this new spike of COVID-19 across Europe, simply because the vaccines are helping sorting that out. Severeness of the virus is not something we can deal with, especially for African countries. Here in Uganda, where investment in health is still minimal compared to the rest of the world, given COVID-19, which causes us to remind you that please invest in yourself, to wear your mask at all times, social distance where possible, and ensure that you go for your jab. No jab, no job. No jab, no entry to parliament. No jab, no entry to Ministry of Health. No jab, no entry to national medical stores. Now those are government entities. You wait before it comes to your company. What are you going to do? Are you going to lose your job simply because you don't want to take a jab? Simply because you don't have faith? You have so many questions? Just take the jab for your own safety and security, because this is here to be with us. We have to normalize the situation ourselves as we fight against COVID-19. Anyway, away from that, we do have our poll question for this morning, which we want you to engage in.
where now we have seen countries agreeing to the pledge of $100 billion to be given out annually, and more to that is also the $130 trillion that have been promised in regards to climate finance. We'll dive into more on that story, and also to the phasing out of coal power.
Okay, all right. Of course, in our newsreel, we are going to be looking at the Electoral Commission and their preparation for by-elections that are coming through next month, and have also a discussion around the election petitions that were in court, those that are actually another election preparation altogether. For our poll question this morning, how can we promote the use of family planning in Uganda? How can we promote the use of family planning in Uganda? Hashtag UBCGMU on Twitter. You can follow us and find this question. Be able to give us your response at UBCTV Uganda, but also you can just send us a WhatsApp. The number is on your screen, and we will be able to engage with you, especially when the weather is like this. People in Kabale tend to have high birth rates because of this weather, but Molen Kenyana can tell us if it's just weather related or it's just a thing of fertility. Molen, which one is it?
I think people in Kabale by now, they should be used to the weather, but also it's very cold there. So I think part of how they had to adapt to the cold weather maybe speaks to their lifestyle. I'll bear me on that.
Okay. Just Felix, in China, you are limited to 2 children. After the 2, if you produce a 3rd one, you face the wrath of the law.
You actually pay tax for that person. But I can't live in China.
Well, in the African setting, it's all about community, especially in Buganda. You don't count children in the first place, and that is the pride that we have. But we must manage these things given the current state of economy and blah, 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 blah. So you let us know why it actually has to be a thing in the first place. But allow us to take a short commercial break. We take the song for the day, leave it with you, and see you in the 7 o'clock hour. discussing reproductive health in Uganda. But before we dive into that conversation, joining me for this topic or conversation is Robert Kirabo as well as Felix Nkunda. But we want to look at a newsreel before we go any further. Our poll question this morning.
Yeah, our poll question would be, how can we promote the use of family planning in Uganda? Springing from the story that did happen while we did see a launch in relation to how we can promote the same. And our question to you is, how can we promote the use of family planning in Uganda? And I'll be able to hit our social media platforms on Twitter, #UBCGMU, on Facebook, and as well you can catch us on WhatsApp. That is 0709 60 25 92. We're waiting to hear from you.
Reproductive health in Uganda is a very crucial and very sensitive subject. One, because of religious factors. We do have cultural settings that do not permit some of these government initiatives to actually see the light of day. But nevertheless, we must talk about them because they are affecting our daily livelihood. We did have the Ministry of Health launching the Uganda Family Planning 2030 commitment to the bridge of the gap that is within the modern family planning, but also ensuring that, among other things, there's availability of family planning resources as well as commodities. Looking at the statistics, Demographic Health Survey of 2016 did put the unmet need of family planning at 28%. That implies that some women who would wish to delay childbearing have no access to modern contraceptives. There is an advert that has actually been running of a mother that gives birth year in, year out, and the husband is not concerned, only to be told after birth number 3 that her body needs to rest for about 2 years before it can be able to conceive another child. And interesting to say, all he says is, "Oh dear, I'm sorry." Why? Because as a man, the pressure is Zarabana. Get the children out of the way and then you do other things. So there's so many things that are affecting reproductive health in Uganda. But looking at the maternal health in Uganda, looking at the mortality rate in Uganda, and Felix Nkunda would like to have a background in this regard and how it has come affecting generation after generation of Ugandans.
Yeah, well, of course, when you talk about reproduction in third world countries, it becomes a very interesting topic because it is not regulated by far. You remember the example you gave in our earlier segment, and you were cracking a joke about China. Countries have reached particular decisions in terms of how they handle reproduction, depending on their muscle as a country. Now, for Uganda in particular, around 1995, we had to get into a bitter discussion of making decision of our reproductive health. Not that the same discussions were not conclusive in their own selves. However, they had to introduce a yardstick and a remedy being in place, not causing coercion to the same. You notice that it became a complementary advice that for people or for families, because of the need to have a much more organized population, a much more relevant population, country decided to get into a discussion of having what we call containable numbers in terms of livelihoodness. And for this comes back to families, as Robert normally says, to have children by choice and not necessarily by chance. Now, that works directly into what the thought was earlier around 1995, when we agreed that for us to have a sensible population, a developed population, a developing population, a meaningful population, you must be able to control how this population is brought up. For example, today in the country, you notice that the population is by far informal than formal, and that is explained in various ways, in terms of employment, in terms of development, in terms of value addition, and that is what we are struggling with. Now this, imagine if we hadn't introduced this probably 25 years ago, and people would be, you have a family that has, say, about 15 children, uneducated. So the background of reproductive health in Uganda springs from that kind of background, that when a country is struggling to get on its feet, having seen where we are come from in terms of political security, economic security, and many other things. You had to put a control. Now, not to the fact that it was actually coercive, for that matter, or even covered under the legalese, but it must be there as an option. Not that we are satisfied with the population you have, but it is not good enough for us to talk about population that is meaningless, that is useless, that is not productive. So that is how we get in place this kind of measures, what people now call family planning, and it fits directly into the name, that how about we plan our families, and the plans we're talking about in this sense, having children we can take care of in terms of feeding, in terms of shelter, in terms of education, in terms of even workspace. Because then later on, if we can be able to conclude this kind of aspect, we are giving to the country a fine product, and that directly trickles into the development span of the country.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that background, Felix. On to Robert Kirabo. Of course, we are seeing this initiative. It's a good initiative that the ministry is helping, pushing. However, currently, government is struggling with certain issues, of course, on cultural levels, things like sex education, especially for our young or youth group that we do have in the population, which covers the biggest percentage that we have of the population in Uganda. So it is struggling to push the family planning project forward because of such issues. Let's talk about availability, sensitization, as well as accessibility of family planning across the country.
Well, thank you, Priscilla. Like I've already said, I'm an advocate of children by choice and not chance. It should not be accidental for you to wake up and pregnant. Not in this era. It must be something that you planned for, agreed upon, looked through, and seen that really we have a way forward for this new creature you're bringing on earth. So when you talk about this family planning, first and foremost, in terms of what is very important is knowledge about these family planning methods. I think to me that is the biggest change that our country is facing. That up to today, you'll find a person who will tell you, you've put on weight, are you on family planning? You know, just like that. You find a person who will tell you, well, you can't child space, the woman will become barren for good. So there is lack of sufficient information. So people in urban areas, they could have some information. And also having information and having the right information are two different things. When
but also having the information and translating it into action is also another different thing.
Another thing. But when you go to the outskirts, rural areas, this is where you'll find even the simplest and most available here in Kampala, which is a condom. That you find a person who may not even know how to use it. It is one of the methods that can stop birth, control, or unwanted pregnancies. So information remains a problem. Even where the information is, you'd find many who don't even know how to use that simple rubber at such a point. Then going to availability, I think also here, government has tried to some extent to ensure that in most of these health centers, at least these services are available. When you go to health center 3s or center 4s, there is even a specific area for family planning methods. And even the private sector has come up. In most of these health facilities, you'll go to even some pharmacies, there is advice, there's clinics. I think we're not doing very bad when it comes to availability and accessibility. And they have not been made very expensive. I think family planning services in this country are one of the cheapest services, because if you're to compare a person who wants to get maybe a coil or an insertion to prevent childbirth, it is cheaper than treating even malaria or any other disease. So availability is also okay. But I think we are still facing a problem of culture and tradition, where a woman would want to space children and the man is saying, "Sinafuna musika, I need a son."
Actually, in that regard, I had a very interesting experience in Zambia Hospital. My sister had a premature. Now, there was this lady that had pressure. And she was a young lady, but she was diagnosed with pressure at an early stage. And so she ended up being pushed to actually conceive and give birth so that this situation does not challenge her later on in life, which she went ahead and did. Unfortunately for her, she ended up having a premature birth, and then 5 months down the road, that baby passed on. And guess what? Her husband pushed her to conceive again. with that very same theory, and her health was left to. So she ended up having another premature birth, and same cycle happened for her. At the end of the day, she ended up taking the baby's life in the ICU because of that kind of pressure.
So we still have that cultural element where someone would believe you need to have a number of children. How on earth can you have 2 children? One would think the aunties, the uncles, the element of culture is a problem. Then also religion. Some faith in this country, we've had police carry out operations regarding issues of medication. Some faith, some religions, not to mention, do not welcome family planning in this country. Well, we told children come from God. Why are you stopping God's creation? There's someone looking for a child and they cannot. So continue giving. So culture, religion, and also basically lack of enough information or the right information still remains a challenge to family planning methods in this country, or usage of these contraceptives.
Okay, all right. But let's look at some of the contraception methods that we have on the Ugandan market. We do have the long-acting reversible contraception, and that's the implant of the intrauterine device, which is also known as the IUD. We also do have the hormonal contraception, which is a pill most times, and also an injection, according to your preference and your body reactions also. We do have barrier methods, which are also known as condoms, emergency contraception, fertility awareness, and also there's the permanent contraception. So these are some of the methods that are available in the market, and they're very good, and they're here to actually service us as a country. But let's look at the importance of having a family planning method. Let's look at the purpose of having a family planning method and how that ties into socio-economic development, Felix.
Well, you see, the most important society in a country's development is a family. It's the most important society. It's the most important contributor to a state development. In fact, if you've had some memes that it is unfair for a person without a family to even run for any leadership position. Now, it works towards directly into what you're asking. Management of family affairs is a national interest aspect. For example, if you're talking about development, who makes the development of this country? It is simply, it all starts, it's a population. We can tell how fast a country will develop given its population. China has utilized this resource, the manpower resource, the human resource, magnificently, and I choose that word selectively. To
the extent that some countries will export them
if
or import them for that matter.
Plants.
Yes, to be
why
able
do you
to
think US
provide
has
labor.
Its biggest brands
in China.
In China. Why? Because they are maximizing their population. They are putting it to use. They are making good of the population. You go to countries like India, talk about ICT, talk about medicine. Lately, they are using their population. Now, how do you, but you can only use your population if it is of substance. Your population is as good as useless if it is full of thieves and lumpens. Now, who makes good that? It's not the state. It's the family. When we talk about children by choice, it is not a meme. It is not a lyrics. It means that you choose to have children that you can make sense out of. You have seen men in this country who have 37 children and they don't even know the names of some others. Now, what's the sense in that? Robert has been talking about the challenges we have against this. And by the way, when Robert was talking, I remembered one of the biggest challenges. We talk about cultural challenges. Can you imagine the name of family planning in Uganda?
Is it Chizara Gumba, if I have it right?
Chizara Gumba, yes. Now, Obugumba in Uganda is being barren.
Yes.
Now, if you name such a like you produce as if you're barren, if you want a direct translation into English, Now that already
So that
defeats
is
the purpose.
Yeah, and the stigma
and
has
the
already been
intention.
placed in people's minds.
Oli ku nkola ya kizaala gomba. So those are some of the challenges we still have when we talk about, when you go to some traditions, people do not believe in your development you're talking about. The development they know is a big crowd in your compound. Whether you can feed them or not, whether you can take them to school or not. And that's why we are saying that away from it being an option, because when it was being passed by the World Organization earlier on, and we want to draw if you want to take it from where it came from, it was brought into as an option for countries to adopt. But if any country wants to develop, you must make sense out of your population.
Okay. And also interestingly, Priscilla, I think we must let Ugandans also understand the benefits of family planning, away from the national level, which Felix has well articulated, is first and foremost to the body that is carrying these children. Many times you've seen women in our country, Uganda in the East African region being one of the countries with the highest fertility rate in terms of our ladies. A woman on average is believed to give birth to about 4.9. I don't know how the 9 is measured, but at least that's what statistics from the world.
Just round off to 5.
To 5 children. So, but family planning helps you to space these children. The body needs to rest. Experts give about 2 years for you to have another baby. So you're draining, you're working out this lady. Second, for the men, many families, you know, when you have very few children, when you have manageable size of children, there's even freedom at home, because
that's relative.
But to some extent,
yeah,
many of the problems you'll find, I'm a local leader, and some of the people that come to you bringing issues, you'll find that there's a relationship between the father failing to handle the huge numbers of children that they have. Children are not going to school. This, and some men will tell you, sorry, I had 2 or 3. So there is so much that we benefit from family planning if we embrace it. And as a country, at family level, as a man, as a woman. Recently, I was having some sensitization about vasectomy. I
actually wanted to
Hi. I recognized how culture is a problem. And traditions where men would say, oh, that is for women.
No, but you see,
which causes me to beg the question that when we talk about family planning, and again, in one way or another, those that are sensitizing the masses, those that are putting out this information, they're sort of categorizing it to be only for women, and yet it's both for men and women. There are methods that are both for men and women, vasectomy being one of those.
And if you
for men,
that.
but again, that debate came up earlier on this year, and the responses of men was quite demeaning to the subject matter.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is that we have not been prepared as a society to take charge of some situations, honestly. And I know you're telling a man at the age of 45, and this is something unheard of them, but women have been hearing these things from childhood. And that's where I also respect one of the statements of the Minister of Health a couple of days ago. She was talking about the boy child. You are doing everything for the girl child. You're not preparing the boy child. And these are some of the challenges. You know, we are still on the core values of a man. Win bread, and win bread. Category vasectomy and mastectomy, what? They don't understand these things. Now, as you're preparing the women, telling them, you must space your children, you must... But men are being, the information.
Because it's in this whole unit planning, it takes 2 to tango. I don't get pregnant by myself, that's for sure.
Again, and that's no doubt.
But how many families discuss that even?
And this is something we must take serious in terms even, again, of family planning. How prepared are the men to understand? You've said it yourself. It seems like family planning is for women. The only thing that men want to know is, okay, we have this one, we wait up, what have you used? Now, it is because there is no preparation. But the women have grown up knowing. And honestly and truly, it's also for some of us, it's just until yesterday we got to know that actually men can But the truth, the information for men is not there because of this whole argument and the friction between how do you prepare a girl child and no one is trying to prepare the boy child.
So then in that regard, right there where we're having this conversation, how can we empower men to participate actively in family planning, not just decision making, but taking up some of these available options of family planning?
Well, one of the initiatives for me, I want to see that really it has worked, for example, in antenatal, where government and some hospitals have come up with this policy that the two have to appear. You know, when you're taking this lady for antenatal, they'll ask where's the husband. Go and bring the man who is responsible. That in one way has brought men to understand, but that is related to pregnancy. But also some get this opportunity to learn more about family planning. And also I believe we should address this at all forums. For example, to what extent does the church attract huge gatherings? What places does the church put into this? These non-government organizations now time to focus on the boy child also as well. I'll give an example. Most places of entertainment today you go to, you find at least there are some family planning methods.
But Robert, you want church to talk about family planning, yet it's opposing family planning.
It must come to a level of understanding and acceptance.
And some of us also fall.
Do you want to have a poor quality congregation? Where even you want to fundraise
what determines poor quality?
Actually, it wouldn't be poor quality. They would leave the kids at church. We have seen them, women dumping children in toilets.
Do you ever answer? Do you ever ask yourself a question? Why at least I know the Catholic churches, 90% of the Catholic churches, they have nursery schools next to them? Because of that very same issue. Have you ever? 90% of churches, they always have a nursery families. School. So, you see, the problem of children are not a problem. In fact, if you want to have my statement, I am for many children. And I shy about that. I have no problem with children.
You're 30, you're 40.
You see, that's not the issue. So the issue is a productive. If you want to go that way, be able to make that of use. That's the thing. Okay, so let me make this one simple. In fact, yes, would you have a vasectomy? A what? Would you have a vasectomy? Seriously, I can't. Why? Because I can't. Why? Why would I have it? Why wouldn't you have it? Because I'm happy to have many children. Okay, all right. I am happy. So, you who wants children by choice, not chance, would it be an option for you?
Definitely, I would. I cloak my. I would definitely, no question about that. No, I've always Priscilla and Felix have been on record systematically promoting family planning, and I've been on record. 3 children are enough. Actually, I wanted 2, but I didn't have the conclusive powers. So I was told, well, if the first is a boy, that we give a second chance. Okay. So I would go and I advocate, and I now speak to my colleague. I advocate for men, because some men do not want to have these children, but they end up having them accidentally. Okay. If you want my last, let me just drive this, please. Okay, please. Vasectomy helps you to ensure that even when you mess, you've had the number, you can manage, you've sealed it off. You can have as far as reproductive, as far as reproductive is concerned. Okay. So you know you're done. You have your 5, you have your 4. Thank you. There's nothing to bother you. In conclusion, Felix Nkunda. Every man out there, recreation is key. Have as many kids as you want, but as every kid you put on earth, make sure you have a plan for them. It's as simple as that. If you can only plan for 5, have 5. If you can plan for 1, if you can plan for 3, give to 3. But if you can plan for 40, give birth to 40 kids. Some of us grew up in extended families, and I can't tell of the joy I had as a child. So I am for many kids, but again, planned. Okay. Like one of my friends, I have a friend of mine that is in Dogomitanda, Peter. When he says every child he has, he puts 2 cows. So not until he has 2 cows, he doesn't have.
because he's sure one cow can take care of a child.
Okay.
I've seen global
All right,
schools
let's,
with healthy children.
at the end of the day, we have to look
those
at the
ones are
benefits of
appropriate.
having family planning and embracing family planning if we are to go by the development idea that Felix Nkunda himself did share. Improvement of maternal health and child survival is very paramount and key, especially in such a time as this where the mortality rate is not impressive at all. We also have to look at reducing the number of abortions. That is something that has become more recurrent. In COVID-19 season, children are not in school, the boys have made the girls pregnant, too many pregnancies all over our communities, and some of these girls have honestly looked to abortion as a solution, which affects their reproductive health in the near future. Let's talk about preventing sexually transmitted diseases. That is also something that is manageable when you take on family planning as a tool of ensuring that you have a good livelihood, and also empowering and promoting social and economic development at the end of the day. And that's why we have the government, that's why we're having the Ministry of Health and coming through with a program that is geared specifically to sensitize the masses over the advantages and the importance of family planning in Uganda. Just a recap onto our poll question, Felix, in regards to that.
Well, of course, our poll question is how can we promote the use of family planning in Uganda? How can we promote the use of family planning? So we've been talking about with my colleagues here, and we just want to get to know what you think and your thoughts are about this whole family planning thing, and how can we promote it in Uganda so we can be able to have, as my comrade says, children by
Choice and not chance.
And you can also add and tell us how many kids would you have.
Okay, all right.
That is Gagamel Brian
from this
Martin.
conversation, you can make your opinion, and you also can make your statement from the assessment of what we have shared here. We'll later on look at those responses. For now, allow us to get into the black and white of the newspapers and see what they're telling us this morning.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94# to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy a 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94# to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175# and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
After bringing Kigali to its knees on energy shift to Nairobi, nothing brings out the true picture of a football derby like the Mijingo Derby. It's a derby that leaves many desiring for more. And oh yes, this is the time that the question that is frequently asked will be answered. If you own the water, we own the land. And all this will be sorted out on the 11th of November 2021 at the St. Mary's Stadium in Chitende. Join us live on UBC TV free to air and radios as we bring you action after action as the two bulls fight and we sit back and relax at the comfort of our homes. UBC TV and radios, your home of sports.
Kagalino twalekedde ekyatulese tuzze tukalanga enfunda eziwerako ddala eno yego TV Super eyabakaguje njagala wekaani ewatali kwemamaaza olwo tuba tusimbudde nego TV Super dupa wawawa era nga bakutuusyako ekiga ekyabakabejja abasajja eŋŋwaŋŋuli kwogata ne busineema obujjudde omuhabati ku $5,015 wawawa soka bulaza weefunye ekirungo kya Go TV Super ekijjudde obulungi ove mu baaje.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
We're always here to ensure that we kickstart your day with relative information that you need as you go about the day. Now, let's look at some of the stories in the print media. I have the New Vision and Felix has the Daily Nation, the Daily Monitor. A very big headline there on the front page. Government sets tough rules for SACCOs. New directives on loan collateral issued. Confiscation of IDs banned. So you can no longer confiscate one's ID. A series of Fide Rutaya's untold story. Yes, Uganda's music icon, but also who did so much to sensitize and create awareness about HIV/AIDS. Will the Vice President disfuse Nabanja and Onek feud? That is a question there for you regarding the Prime Minister and the Minister for Disaster and Relief Preparedness in our country. Then investigate corruption in IGG office. Premier tells Kamia. That is the Prime Minister, picture of the Prime Minister and the IGG. Over 160 tenders inside for you, but also when it comes to education, past O level, there is English for Senior 3, Entrepreneurship, ICT plus Senior 2 Physics and Mathematics in today's New Vision. Ministry of Works takes over motor vehicle registration. That was yesterday.
Well, of course, in the Daily Monitor, Nawangwe scorecard giving an evaluation of how the big man at Makerere has performed. But also, Museveni issues new rules on city markets. Even with a small engine, the Alteza is very fast. Now, Chambogo bans bags in lectures, works now to register vehicles, and government to regulate 7 groups. Still, the Daily Monitor, government set to fee for use, sets fee for using Kampala Entebbe Express Highway, and judiciary stuck with 26 billion bail cash. Well, of course, there's a photo from the archives here. And today in history, Israel PM assassinated, that is 1995, and Barack Obama elected as America's first black president, that is November 4th, 2008.
Well, back to the New Vision as we gear up to World AIDS Day, that is on the 1st of December. There is a series regarding HIV/AIDS, and the New Vision brings you Chivumbi's house. That is the house of the first person or the first HIV/AIDS case that was registered in Uganda, which is in Chotera district. Currently, that was part of Rakai district. Now, we also look at the COVID-19 tracker for Uganda. New confirmed cases, 49. Positivity rate, 1.1%. Death, 2 cases so far confirmed. And we look at the total deaths registered in the country. Uganda, due to COVID, we are at 3,219. Once again, get that jab so that we fight death due to COVID-19, but also perfect the soaps to avoid the positivity rate and infection rates being high in our country. Tips: well, you can wash your hands with soap and water, maintain social distancing at least of 2 meters, avoid touching yourself before washing your hands with soap and water. Looking at facts or myth regarding HIV, understanding the importance of ARVs. Well, there's so much the Vision gives you there. Today in history, we look at Crawford leaves government house, but also on this very date, the 4th of November, there 1995, gunmen assassinate Israel Prime Minister.
Now in sports, Mandela affirms Villa presidential ambition, and Uganda pushed past depleted Eritrea in Jeru. And of course, Rusing welcome for Queen's Baton in Clark, and also Wachiso Giants deepen Villa mode after Uganda Premier League clash. But also, Ronaldo goal and Michael Jordan moment. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer comes out to celebrate how Ronaldo saved them against Atlanta last time. Now, cricket fraternity celebrates true silent heroes. That is Sewa Good Day was celebrated. But also LeBron James shines in Los Angeles Lakers win. much of that again will be given to us by Ruben Kasera Pima.
In the new Vision Sport, we have inside the She Cranes Thump Zimbabwe, while also Mandela back, that is SC Villa, where Mandela has shown interest for the SC Villa presidency. But also the Queen's baton arrives in the country today, and there is a program there right from Entebbe International Airport all the way through, and still there's so much regarding international sports as well. But like Felix said, Ruben will be here to give you so much regarding the sports arena.
Give you the updates in the Daily Nation, where we'll be looking at more several ill COVID patients unvaccinated, and trouble in Ford K as a parallel meeting halted there. But also Ruto's 100 billion kitty for informal businesses and Raila's 144 billion cash transfer fund stand out. Now enter the politics of Father Christmas also, and of course where we see most of the containers there trying to make sense out of the season in the Daily Monitor. Now climate, Kenya signs treaties to protect forests. Many more to that story is what you can get when you get yourself copies of the papers. But also now we want to look at the traffic updates with Priscilla.
Thank you so much, Felix Nkunda. Traffic updates from this morning. We'll pick it up where we left it off yesterday, and that is the Kampala-Entebbe Express Highway, where you get to then interface with the areas of Kajansi. Now, there's always options or other alternative routes that you can use if you're coming in from Entebbe and you maybe want to access the likes of Machindia Division. You don't necessarily have to bear the jam that is building up around Entebbe Road into Chibuye, into downtown Kampala. You have the alternative of using the Kajansi roundabout and connect to Mutungo area, and that will connect you into the area of Rweza, which will then bring you to Chigo and give you direct access to Machindia Division. And so there's one access route that will connect you, Salama Road, and Salama Road does connect you back to where you would have Machindia. And then you also do have another route here, which is Lukuli Road, that also gives you a connection into the heart of the city. Another connective road is past Speak Resort, and then it gives you access to Bunga, and that way you are in Bunga. So yeah, you get to enter the likes of Kabalagala this morning without any hindrance as far as traffic jam is concerned. That way you would have avoided traffic jam right from Entebbe Road, Chibuye. You'd have avoided traffic jam in Katwe, and you'd have had direct access either way into the areas of Machindia Division, Kansanga, Chiwafu. You do have Muyenga, Bukasa. All these are areas you can access through Gaba Road. Now, following Gaba Road, you get to see that Gaba Road this morning. If you get closer to the heart of the city, obviously some few routes are going to be picking up in terms of traffic jam around what is known as the Kabalagala Trading Center. You will have some jam, one because of public transport that is picking up people and dropping off people. It's a trading center, businesses are open, so there's a lot of high activity happening within the Kabalagala area code, which affects the flow of jam, especially for traffic that is entering the heart of the city using Zambia Road. Also, there's a jam that we are seeing on Mienga Road, also a contributing jam from Bogo Road trying to connect to Mienga Road and perhaps connect to Gaba Road this morning. So this particular area is a very slow movement in terms of traffic. The other place that is looking high in Machindia Division in terms of traffic is around St. Francis Nsambia Hospital. You get to see that the hospital is actively contributing to the jam because one, there's commuter taxi stages there. Two, that hinders those that have come to access services in the hospital to be able to access the hospital. And then obviously people that are using Hanlon Road as the back route access into the other side of town from Machindia Division, anywhere in Machindia Division, also are bringing traffic, and then the narrowness of the road does not even make it any easier. However, you also do have to put it to consideration that all this traffic I'm talking about has to one way or another gain access to Zambia Road, and that access right now is under construction. We do have the Kampala flyover that is stretching all the way from Chibuye entering to Katwe, and a affecting Zambia as well right now, which means that traffic is going to be rather slow than usual. So rather than go through that traffic jam, better you come back to Kabalagala, go through Mbogo Road, and then access the heart of the city through 7th Street, connect to Kampala Ginger Road, and that way you are good to go in terms of traffic. So those are some of the considerations you can use if you're coming in from the likes of Wakiso district where Entebbe is, and then you can access Machinde division to be able to enter any part of Kampala without having to go through the cumbersome jam that is continuously growing slower and slower and slower. Away from that, we get to see your responses to our poll question this morning. Regarding family planning. In China, 3 children are now allowed. They've been given the leeway to now have 3 children. Good morning, dear presenters. I'm called Rasul Idrihiris from Zombo district. I advise the citizens to get vaccinated because if they don't, the vaccine will get expired and also leading to the delay of some people not to access entry in some points of services. But also in response to family planning, he's advising fellow Ugandans to use family planning methods simply because the economy is low right now. Well, thank you so much. Those are some of the responses. Tomorrow, as you know, is a special Friday, and on special Friday we bring you special editions which have some music ballads in there. Tomorrow we are having Mr. Michael Chitandwa, and they are giving us Sax in the City concert that is happening this weekend, but we are having a preview of that concert tomorrow here on Good Morning Uganda. Something to look out for. I know Ben Pima Chibirango actually likes the saxophone, and he has always demanded that Michael Oma returns to Good Morning Uganda. Well, we're not bringing you Michael Oma, we are bringing you many Michael Omas tomorrow. Michael Chitandwa is a Ugandan jazz Chitanda is a jazz saxophonist, and he will be here with us alongside his colleagues. Something for you to actually look forward to. And then obviously for COVID-19, we do have a vaccine fact that we want to leave with you this Thursday morning. No mixing vaccination types. And this is something, a song that I keep singing. If you got Pfizer in the beginning, your second shot must be a Pfizer shot. And do not be deceived. I know some people, people that are helping in the campaign of vaccination of masses can't tell you, no, it's okay, no, it's the only one available. No, do not go by that. Make sure that you actually go with your card. I know rural areas do not have this kind of information, but your card can help sort out that information. Your card with your first jab will guide them on the jab that you should be receiving next. Therefore, when you start on your one COVID-19 vaccine type for dose 1, you must stick to that type even for the second dose. Available evidence is not sufficient enough to justify the need to mix different vaccine types. Hence, Uganda discourages this practice. Don't be tempted to mix vaccines. All COVID-19 vaccines are available to you, and they are free, they're safe, and equally effective in preventing severe disease, hospitalization, as well as death. Now, this information is brought to you by the Ministry of Health, and that is a very strong point. So again, I insist, if you've gotten your first jab, move with your vaccination card. It will guide the facilities to give you the exact jab. If it's not there, you can still wait or ask them to refer you to a place that actually is offering that particular vaccine that you had as your first dose. For now, Molen Kenyana returns to give us an update on COP26. Mr. President for Uganda did make some statements there, mushrooming of them or becoming a reality for us as Uganda. What time frame are we looking at, and also what other heads of state are having dialogue about in this conference?
Well, thank you, Priscilla. I was happy that the Ugandan delegation was able to also join other states in talking about more measures towards deforestation, and that was day 2 of COP26. But we are going to talk about the outcomes of day 3, that is for 3rd of November, and most of the talk was revolving around the climate finance. And so far,
Also, we have seen that over 190 nations did come together to sign off on an agreement that has been made up with COP26. Now, that is looking at phasing out coal production. And I'm happy to say that most of the big emitters of this world, like China, they are also very much interested in this deal. And we also saw more commitments and signatories from a lot of organizations that deal mostly with fossil fuels, also willing to phase out coal. And that is something that is good. So far, looking at the outcomes that we've had for these few days within COP26. And most certainly, looking at just 190 nations, that is not enough to make sure that we go to what we target. The targets of Paris Agreement to keeping temperatures well below 2 degrees centigrade won't be just possible looking at only 190 nations. We need to globally look at this and bring everyone on board. But I think it's a good start. And more of what they were looking at is actually that by the 2030s, then we look at all these developed nations having phased out completely the use of coal and other fossil fuels. Then by the 2040s, we also look at the poorer countries that haven't had enough options when it comes to renewable energy, also moving towards that kind of target to make sure that we phase out burning of fossil fuels for sure. So I think that is something that we have to look out for. But also more of the outcomes that did come out yesterday where talks about the climate finance, and there were some of the leaders that did line up towards being in Glasgow and make sure that the climate talks are actually going as planned. Now, we did see the president of COP also addressing the fact that developed nations have not made their contributions towards the pledges that they did give us a few years ago, and that started in 2015 when globally they did come out with the Paris Agreement. But this is something that has not been realized, especially the $100 billion that we are still demanding them. So the good news coming through is that now everyone who was party to that kind of deal has agreed that from now forward they are willing to give that money annually. And we look at more of what this money is supposed to do, and because it is given towards the developing countries, more on adaptation, because this is the challenge that developing countries have had to deal with. We do have effects of climate change, from floods, to droughts, to landslides, but the fact that these countries are vulnerable, there is not a lot we can do to live with these changing patterns. But with this money coming through, then we look at more climate finding towards the disaster and preparedness, towards rehabilitating people, and make sure that we even then, for example, I'll give an example of what we have in Kasese. We know that whenever there are heavy rains, then we see like River Nyamamba and other rivers bursting their banks. But isn't there a way to make sure that even when these rivers do burst their banks, we can put a protective guard to make sure that this flooding does not go into the villages? So I think much of this money that is being given out is meant to curb issues like those. And also more of what we looked at COP26 talking about yesterday was the contribution of $130 trillion also geared towards the same. Now, this is going to be mostly in regard to countries moving to renewable energy. That means that we look at more solar plants, we look at more countries moving to wind energy, which has been something that a lot of European countries actually did take on earlier on within the negotiations. We did see COP22, COP23, most of the European countries actually committing to doing that, but it's not enough. So that means that there is still a lot that we are looking forward to. And most of the plenary sessions also from yesterday, and also what we're expecting for today as COP continues, is going to be more talks on commitments, what the countries are presenting in terms of the nationally determined contributions, how much are they willing to do back home. So I think that is something that we're looking forward to as we talk about most of the outcomes from today's sessions. But also interesting enough is how the Duke and Duchess of England were gearing towards and giving an example into what we can do in terms of taking more on renewable energy. So they did take a bus that is going to Scotland, that means that their idea was we can actually reduce consumption of fuel if we drive less. So Kate and Prince William did walk through and go to the bus, and where they actually took electric vehicles as an example to show people that we can actually do this. You don't have to all drive through going to Scotland. Taking a bus, that means that you're reducing the consumption of energy. So that was something really nice that the Prince was actually showing right there. But well, let's come back here home and look at how the weather is looking like in terms of what our satellites are capturing for this morning over Uganda. Well, we did start off with rainy conditions, but those were towards the Kirabo region, and that system is still developing. We're following up more on what that is likely to bring to other areas, especially central north, but that system looks like it still has a few hours to move in towards parts of northern Uganda. Now, most areas are still having mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, but we do look at some of those that are starting to develop, especially across the central part of Lake Victoria that is headed towards Kampala. We still have mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, more clouds towards the western parts of Lake Victoria, but we're looking at those likely to develop into rainy conditions as the morning progresses and also towards the afternoon. Now, same conditions across southwestern Uganda, that is across Mbara. Already we're seeing a few areas starting to develop light rains, but also those are likely to continue as the morning progresses. Now we look at mostly mostly the Kabale Highlands. Actually, this part is already having cloudy conditions, and definitely we are expecting rains for this morning. Those will continue to develop, and that system could actually also continue into the afternoon. We look more into what is happening across the north. Now, this is the rainy system that I'm keeping my eyes on. Now, this is the one likely to actually continue westwards, that is towards central northern Uganda, and that will be bringing us thunder rains this morning. And the same system could actually continue towards the northwestern. That will be bringing us scattered showers also for later in the afternoon. But for now, it is still a mix of clouds and sunshine. Now, we're also seeing more clouds developing across the Elgon region, that is across Mbale, Bududa, that area already having cloudy conditions and likely to also have rainy conditions as the day progresses. But we'll go ahead and take a look at our forecast for most areas across Uganda this morning. But it looks like most areas actually having intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Now, we start off with the central Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe and Wakiso. We are forecasting isolated showers. Those will be starting off at 24 degrees centigrade. We could actually see that system continuing into the afternoon. Well, we look more into central northern Uganda, where we have Jumani, Gulu, Kitguma and Padel. We are forecasting those scattered showers that will be coming in, and also starting off at 26. We could be looking at more rains for that area also in the afternoon, and temperatures could remain in the upper 20s. Now we look at the eastern parts of Central, where we have Ruwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke. Nakasongola is also in that category, starting off this morning with a mix of clouds and sunshine at a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, but also do look out for rainy conditions for that area later in the afternoon. Now we look at eastern Uganda, where we have Soroti, Katakwi, Amuria. We do have Kumi in that category. We are forecasting isolated showers, also starting off with a maximum of 26 for this morning, but that will be clearing later in the afternoon. We could be looking at sunny conditions, that is later in the evening. Now we look at the eastern part of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Busia, we have Jinja, Iganga and Tororo. We are forecasting those isolated showers, meaning that at least 20% of the forecast area will be seeing these rains. That will be over a few areas. Now also starting off with a maximum of 25 for this morning, but we could also be looking at sunny intervals later as the day progresses. Now we look at Mount Elgon Highlands. We already have those cloudy conditions developing, and those are likely to bring in rains. Even as we speak now, we do have most of the rainy conditions starting to drop over that area, starting off with a cold 24 degrees centigrade. Also, that system is likely to continue as we head into the afternoon. Well, looking at southwestern Uganda, where we have Mbarara, Ibanda, Bushenyi, and Rubirizi, we are forecasting scattered showers, and also that will be starting off with a cool 24 degrees centigrade. We do expect more rains for that area as well as the day continues. Well, it looks like mostly the Lake Choga region actually right now is just dealing with sunny skies. There's a mix of clouds and sunshine, but we also have those clouds that are starting to develop, and that could bring in rains that is across parts of Lake Choga. But well, I'll leave you at that for now. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be here to take you through, and then later we'll have sports, and much later than that we'll have Good Morning Uganda Extra, that is by Jagenda. Well, my name is Molen Kenyana. I want to wish you a good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by